Sono Alberto Contarini, mi occupo di amministrazione.
My name is Alberto Contarini, and I am in charge of administration, finance, budgeting, and management control with a particular focus on micro enterprises, those small businesses with entrepreneurs who usually have plenty of ideas and are very active, but often do not have sufficient financial resources to fund the startup of the business or its growth. The time comes for business activities to be started. Capital is needed, financing is needed, money is needed. The petrol to make the car that is our company go to make it run. There is a whole series of questions that need to be answered. How can I finance my enterprise? What are the tools and the typical characteristics of these tools? What is of interest to my lender? What documents will he ask me for? Will he ask us for? What kind of relationship should I establish with my lender or investor? And also, what are the figures of interest? What are the values that will be taken into consideration in evaluating my business? The aim of this module on access to funding, or rather access to sources of funding, is to help the entrepreneur to look for and find the answers to those questions, to change his or her perspective, to make the entrepreneur walk in the lender's shoes, the investor's shoes. Trying to find answers in this way to understand the reasons that make an investor decide whether or not to finance a business.
Azioni che spingono poi un investitore a finanziare o meno un'attività economica.
We will talk about the financing process, the different phases, how to deal with it, the importance of cash flows, how to represent them correctly, and how cash flows can help define the maximum amounts of debt a company can sustain and can repay. But we will also examine in detail the characteristic of the various financing methods, whether loans or lines of credit, and guarantees, how to obtain them, how to recover them.
Ottenere, di come poterle recuperare.
We will talk about the indices and indicators that are first and foremost used by the banking system, but also by other lenders and which are used to evaluate business activity. Knowing how lenders evaluate us and analyze us is the first step for the company. First of all, to be able to carry out a self-evaluation, and secondly, to prepare all the required documents appropriately, transparently, and as effectively as possible. In the hope that this module can help you find the answers to your questions, enjoy watching the video.
Vi auguro una buona visione.
The objective of this video lesson is to provide information on how to obtain financing for your company. As rules for accessing credit are becoming increasingly strict, it is extremely important to know about supply channels and diversify your sources. In this video lesson, we will look at the mechanism a company can use to secure financing and how to submit clear and transparent documentation. We will study the checks that lenders carry out on creditworthiness. And finally, we will learn about new options for accessing credit introduced by recent technological innovations and new laws that take account of the increasing globalization of markets. Are you ready? Good! Let's get started. Companies are often looking for funding to expand their business, or in the case of startups, to launch successful entrepreneurial ideas. Let's take a look at the channels that can be used to finance a company. The first source of financing is third-party loans. A second option is using shareholder capital. And then there are various forms of grants. For third-party loans, the company, whether a startup or a consolidated business, contacts external institutions such as banks or investment funds that provide loans in return for interest on their capital. In this case, the entrepreneur remains responsible for the company's risk, having provided the guarantees necessary to secure the capital after agreeing the methods and deadlines for repayment. When using shareholder capital, funds provided by shareholders are invested in the company. The risk is shared and the commitment must guarantee that the quotas will remain available for long enough to consolidate the company's results. Grants are donation, usually provided by institutions which do not need to be repaid and which are donated for philanthropic purposes. Companies receiving these donations are usually in the voluntary sector or provide guarantees that they will be used for philanthropic ends. Social or for-profit companies receiving grants must provide transparent accounting in order to ensure repayment of the agreed amount. The lender, whether a bank or another investment fund, must take decisions about the company's financing application. These decisions will be based on two main parameters: the solvency of the company, for example, whether the company is solid enough economically to repay the loan; the reliability of the company, which can be determined through its credibility and reputation, and therefore the probability based on its record of debt repayment that it will be able to repay the loan. How are a company's solvency and credibility evaluated? Through various information channels. The record of companies and individuals can be determined using a well-consolidated network that mainly provides quantitative information. A number of tools exist for gathering information. The most frequently used tool is the CRIF, a computerized database containing data on loans requested by and granted to individuals and companies. It is also possible to search the Centrale dei Rischi, an IT system that monitors the repayment of debts to bank and other lenders by companies and individuals. The lender can also check other data, for example, if there are any protests and insolvency proceedings involving the entrepreneurs, such as bankruptcy or composition with creditors, or consult the Chamber of Commerce register to check the company's details. The credit institution can also gather qualitative information, for example, on the company's website or from other databases documenting its payment practices. All quantitative and qualitative information researched independently by the lender must be up to date in order to be useful. It is therefore fundamental to have a voluntary communication tool that transmits all quantitative and qualitative information and updates on your company. To submit a financing application, you usually need to follow the instructions in the specific process that you want to participate in. It is important to prepare a dossier to present your company and your financial plan or business plan and include key information to allow the lender to evaluate your proposal. Of course, if your company is a startup, you won't have any financial statements to submit. In general, you will be asked to provide the following with a financial application: company documents, such as articles of association, registration certificates, identity documents, resolution appointing the legal representative, tax returns, Chamber of Commerce extracts, and bank details. Financial documents, such as the business plan or financial plan, financial statements, cash flow analysis, breakdown of financial exposure, tax payment certificate, analysis and breakdown of payable and receivables. Any additional document like the analysis and breakdown of assets, exposure in the Centrale dei Rischi database, insurance contracts, contracts with external professionals, sales contracts, and the entrepreneur's CV. The financial statement you submit to the lender is particularly important. The financial statement is composed of a balance sheet, BS, which sets out the quantitative and qualitative composition of the company's assets. Net income, NI, which sets out the financial results for the financial year showing costs and revenues. Explanatory notes, ES, which explains the criteria applied in evaluating the figures in the financial statement. An evaluation will decide how and whether your company can be profitable by examining certain specific parameters. It is important for you to know about them beforehand and use them to evaluate your own credit application. The person analyzing the credit application will look at your company's financial and economic balance and the way that your financial planning can support cash flows. Banks may also use specialized agencies to draw up a rating, a specific evaluation of your file. It is therefore very useful to learn to communicate your financing application clearly. Financial balance looks at the sources and uses of financing shown on the balance sheet. When analyzing the financial statement, the balance sheet is divided into 5 macro categories. Assets are composed of fixed assets and current assets, while liabilities include net equity, medium and long-term debts, and current liabilities. Economic balance looks at the cost and revenues for the financial period as taken from the net income, the instrument that makes it possible to calculate your activity's cost and revenues and to check that the associated profitability indices are positive. Finally, as well as the financial statement and financial documents, the description of your business plan will also be very important. With this in mind, it is essential to outline the contents completely and clearly show your company's expected and potential profitability. The lender may ask for guarantees to support your credit application. It is important to keep in mind that guarantees can attenuate the financial risk that the lender is exposed to, but do not ensure your credit application will be successful. If your company is not suitable or you have insufficient means to make repayments, it will still be rejected. The different types are collateral, personal, atypical, state, and consortium guarantees. Let's take a look. A mortgage is a collateral security backed by property, registered movable assets and rights of enjoyment, such as usufruct and habitation. In general, it is associated with high-value loans, for example, the purchase of a warehouse, and the loans does not cover more than 80% of the value of the mortgage property. The mortgage is entered in a public register, permitting the creditor to take possession of the property if debt is not repaid. A pledge involves a collateral guarantee linked only to movable assets such as securities, credits, or sums of money. If the loan is not repaid, the bank takes possession of the assets even if it's not included in a public register. A surety is the main form of personal guarantee requested by banks. The guarantor guarantees the loan with the bank, and if the debt is not repaid, the guarantor becomes liable. Assignment of debt is an agreement by which the debt is transferred. If it is not repaid, the creditor will recover the amount. An order for collection allows the debtor to assign their debts in place of the loan. Finally, there are state and consortium guarantees. One of the main instruments used to facilitate access to the credit is the Guarantee Fund for SMEs, or Small and Medium Enterprises. This fund, used in relation to loans provided by banks or other intermediaries, grants a public guarantee that reinforces or substitutes the collateral guarantees provided by companies. Confidi, the Mutual Credit Guarantee Consortia, is another important option. The consortium guarantee uses the mutuality principle to help SMEs get access to credit, with funds collected from members. Remember that neither the Guarantee Fund nor Confidi provide loans, but they can act as guarantors to support your loan. Contact your bank to find out if your company is eligible for these guarantees. Legislative and technological innovation has led to the expansion of sources of credit, and nowadays it is easier to access non-bank financing instruments and diversify sources of credit. Crowdfunding is one of the main new types of funding currently available. allowing individuals and companies to share projects on online platforms managed by specialized intermediaries. Let's take a look at some of these new sources of credit. Equity crowdfunding involves raising risk capital, allowing investors to become shareholders in the company. You can access it if you are promoting a startup or an SME, and you need a loan of less than 5 million euros. Reward-based crowdfunding is used in fundraising campaigns to finance a specific project in exchange for a prize, a gadget, or a share of the revenues earned through the project. Lending-based crowdfunding collects loans from individuals to be paid back through the platform according to the deadlines and rates agreed with the manager, who will use the usual channels to evaluate your creditworthiness in order to protect the public. Many bonds may also be of interest, an alternative financial instrument allowing unlisted companies to issue bonds, including for small amounts, provided subscription is reserved to institutional investors. Many bonds, which together with commercial paper are credit instruments for raising funds from the public, are structured instruments that involve significant amounts for companies, certified financial statements, and a series of measurements to protect creditors. If transparency and credibility are important for banks, they are even more so for private investors, the crowd in crowdfunding. It is therefore fundamental to present information to allow users of the crowdfunding platform to get to know you and your story and to verify the transparency and credibility of your projects. As well as technical information, you will have to produce an illustrated presentation to describe the project and the company developments. We have reached the end of this module. As you have seen, it is not easy to get credit, and it takes good knowledge of the instruments available, as well as very clear ideas about what to propose to lenders. It is important to establish a positive reputation among the public and on financing circuits to allow your company to present itself transparently and earn the necessary trust. Before signing off, let's summarize the key concepts of the module. 1. When drawing up a financing application, we recommend you pay close attention to the lender's requirements. Not all announcements are the same, especially when it comes to the contents of the business plan, and financing applications should comply with the stated guidelines. 2. It is very important for you to evaluate your own company first. The information provided in this module, together with solid preparation work, will help you to understand if you have a good chance of securing financing. 3. Remember, banks, like all lenders, want guarantees to ensure that your company will be able to repay the loan. Manage the application and the personal relationship with the lender clearly and transparently, and show how much your company will benefit thanks to the loan. 4. Don't underestimate the importance of cash flow. Show that you are able to forecast future revenues and outgoings, including management of suppliers and customers. Show the lender that you will be able to repay the loan. 5. The instruments offered by fintech operators, such as online platforms, are centered on company reputation and credibility. The relationship at the heart of this phenomenon allows individuals and companies to take the place of banks. 6. Last but not least, lenders evaluate the company risk you are personally exposed to. Therefore, it is important to consider investing your own capital, thereby showing you are willing to take risks for your company. All of these concepts will be essential for drawing up your credit application. Discover how in the Doing Business manual that you can find on the website of the International Organization for Migration, IOM, at www.italy.iom.int.